I wrote a letter, and I copied you guys, and I talked about it, about the conflict of interest with Chairman Sullivan, is not only the director of the UCR.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What? You're wasting my time again?
I'll give you a little extra time.
Thank you very much. But I don't know if you read the letter. I do send you letters on occasion. But let me just read a little. I would say, note that Freeholder Sullivan in the recent past, sitting on the Freeholder board, has recused himself from other matters of public discussion and vote on the UCUA, which defines the fact that he does recognize conflicts of interest between the UCUA and the Freeholder board. UCUA outside counsel Dakota Fitzpatrick stated in his letter of 9/27 that UCUA surplus monies can be a payment to the county for use in reducing the amount of the county's budget obligations. So as director of the UCUA, Freeholder Sullivan now has the authority and capacity to increase or decrease this revenue stream from the UCUA into the government budget as he sees fit. So that takes out the independence of the county from the UCUA in crafting the budget process. Obviously, with Freeholder Director Sullivan on both sides of the equation, he is inextricably linked and therefore is a conflict of interest. I would also like to point out in your Union County Administrative Code, page 155, paragraph 45.6, it's actually a code of ethics. Item E, and Council Barry might be able to review this, but this says, no local government officer shall undertake any service which might reasonably be expected to prejudice his independence of judgment in his official duties. Obviously, he's the Finance Committee Chairman, and right there he's supposed to be independent, yet he's presiding over his own cash flow coming into the budget. There is no independence. Right now, it is a violation, possibly civil and possibly criminal violation based on that. Also, I would just like to reference paragraph H. No local government officer shall represent any party other than the local government in connection with any matter pending before any agency in the government. Right there again, his independence is a conflict of interest. I seriously think you better do something. My recommendation, Freeholder Scanlon is leaving at the end of this year. Why don't you let her preside as the chairman of the Finance Committee? I mean, if it's really that dire as you're talking about, let her take the heat. She's going to move on anyway. It would be perfect. I wish her luck.
You know what?
Does that sound, stick it to you at the end. So, just one last item, as you're giving me a couple of seconds.
You deserve it. On one of your points, Mr. Patterson, I did read your letter. I saw it in the paper. You said, you had a comment in there, something about without care or conscience, I think is how you put it, that I pointed Freeholder Sullivan. I want to tell you just the opposite. And with great care and with great conscience, I appointed Freeholder Sullivan chairman of the Finance Committee. He's done a terrific job to this point. You're not an expert or a lawyer to really point out any conflict of interest. I have just the alternative view. There is no conflict. So I can appreciate you finding things to throw on the wall and see what sticks, and that's what happens sometimes. I appreciate that, but this isn't one of those times. So that's my point.
County Council is going to speak on the one speaker who talked about a conflict of interest on my part. But I want to say to the gentleman, as I know, and it's an old saying, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. One of the things in the letter said, frankly, first off, that I was appointed to that position by the Freeholder Board, which is just not true. I was not appointed by the Freeholder Board to that position. I was appointed to that position by the Union County Utilities Authority Board, a separate and distinct entity. Secondly, let me make it absolutely clear. One of the other things you said, I now control the money that comes from the Utilities Authority to this Freeholder Board. Again, absolutely untrue. That is done by the Union County Utilities Board. I have no authority whatsoever to increase it. Listen to me. To increase that by one nickel. Frankly, I'm sure the Freeholder Board would be happy if it was $15 million coming from the Utilities Authority as opposed to 1.5. And in this day, when we're struggling with the budget, the idea that the new deal that we had with Covanta that provides the millions of dollars coming directly to the Freeholder Board, as well as to towns like Summit. I think they're all grateful for that, as well as lowering their tipping fees. So again, you can have your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. And I just pointed 2 facts, non-facts, frankly, that are just not so.
A couple of things to follow up on Freeholder Sullivan's comments relative to this alleged conflict of interest. I would say this, that there is no conflict of interest. I have looked at this matter. In fact, there is, in terms of any kind of a general conflict, there is a provision within the Utilities Authority that specifically provides that public officials, which would include the freeholders, may serve as employees of the Utilities Authority, specifically provided for. I do not see any conflict relative to Freeholder Sullivan's service as the finance chair. I do agree with him with his factual statements that, in fact, he was not appointed by this board, and nor does he, in his capacity as interim executive director, have the ability to control the funds of the Utilities Authority. One other thing I would like to comment on is that in the letter, it also referenced some comments I made at the last meeting regarding circumstances leading up to the construction of the new courthouse. During the meeting, Freeholder Sullivan referenced a conference he and I had on the conflict issue, which is accurate. We did have a discussion on that matter. I will not divulge the content of that discussion, other than to say we had a discussion and I concluded that there was no conflict. Later in the meeting, Mr. Patterson referenced certain circumstances surrounding the construction of the new courthouse. That's what I addressed in my comments. Mr. Patterson's letter goes on to imply that my responding to that particular alleged conflict with the courthouse implied that somehow we lied about the conflict discussion with Freeholder Sullivan. It just is not accurate. I think they're totally separate and apart issues. I was addressing the new courthouse issue. Overall, my position is there is not a conflict of interest, and Freeholder Sullivan is certainly clear to serve in his capacity as the chair of the fiscal committee. We have in the past addressed and will continue to address on a case-by-case basis any conflicts that may arise.
Thank you, Bob. You're welcome.